Grand. So we've talked about out of bound areas in the master schedule. In terms of logistics, in the church building, the choir is going to be seated in the choir stalls, and that's where they're going to be before the broadcast starts. So they're not going to process in. The procession is going to consist purely of servers, clergy, and bishop and church wardens at the end as we come in, and that will take place during the first hymn. They have asked if I can sit right of the centre on the top of the chancel step, and we'll put Bishop Debbie opposite me, so she's sort of near the pulpit or wherever she turns out to be preaching. They haven't decided whether they want her in the pulpit or not, so we'll see. For everything else, a normal light up, so high altar candles lit and prepared. Tom, if you can prepare the Easter the chalices we used at Easter, with I think 150 hosts in the ciborium, and we'll work from there and assess further if we get a very large congregation. We don't know what to expect. It's possible we could have a very large congregation. The BBC reported that when they went to Canterbury Cathedral for Easter, they were expecting 1,000 people, because that's what Canterbury usually gets for Easter Day, and they had 400 instead. So it could be that lots of people end up getting a bit camera shy, a bit like some of our 8 o'clock congregation. So just being aware of the fact that we're going to fly on from the seat of our pants a little bit in terms of all of that. There is going to be an offertory procession within the service, so the elements can be brought up. There will not be a cash collection in this service. That's really important. No sort of pottering about with plates or anything else like that. And everything we're going to use is going to be in the order of service, which will be printed here next week. And no pew sheets going out. We'll make pew sheets available, but no pew sheets going out, just so that what we're giving people is really, really simple. In terms of preparations, I know that people have been cleaning and dusting in the church, and thank you very much indeed for that. There are 1 or 2 areas that could do with a little bit of close attention, and I'm thinking around the window frames that we can kind of get to them. And if there's a possibility of getting some of the brasswork polished up, that might be rather nice. Tom, we'll use the smaller theorbo. We'll use Bill. Can you make sure he's cleaned inside and out? I'm aware it's a bit thick in there at the moment, but some nice clean burning smoke, and things like that. I don't know whether we're going to be allowed to have the windows open in the chancel, but we'll talk to the BBC about that. I think let's presume that we won't be. So let's just go easy on what we use in the service. I expect we're going to have doors open, a certain amount of ventilation. If it's a hot day like today, it might be quite close. But again, we'll run that one as we go. There are going to be first aiders around wearing green lanyards. Church wardens and side people, can we please fit you up with our white steward lanyards? I think we've got a pile of those knocking around in the choir room, just so that the BBC can identify you as responsible, and do that. So people who are going to be at the back at the doors, and they've asked to speak to as many of you as possible on Thursday at the disruption planning meeting. Just exploring some of what that might entail. We have had 1 or 2 curious emails sent to through our website, and everything the BBC have 2 within the range of possibility, a kind of, I don't know, Just Stop Oil or Palestine Solidarity Campaign protesters who might sort of decide to pitch up. We need to, I don't have any specific intelligence other than the odd flutter, but we need to be prepared for that. And that's what they're going to talk to us about on Thursday, how we handle a disruption. If we can diffuse it very quickly, the broadcast can continue. If it's a large-scale disruption, it might call an end to what we're doing. But they'll talk to us about that on Thursday and work it all out. There are going to be 9 cameras in the church. There's one going to be facing down the central aisle. Cameras 2 and 3 are going to be pointed at the lectern and the pulpit. Camera 4 is going to be in the is going to be near the sacristy door, and is a jib, so it's a big camera on a massive pole that they can move up and down and over people's heads. Camera 5 is a pan tilt zoom PTZ camera on an adjustable pole. I think that's going to be over the choir. Camera 6 and 7 are over the high altar. Camera 8 is an organ snoop camera, so they can check what book Lawrence is playing out of. And there's going to be a camera 9 in the gallery. So walking in the garden, Lawrence, yep. And things like that. Tom, can we have candles in the candelabra in the sanctuary? If we leave them unlit, but can we put candles in those just to draw a bit of contrast out? Would that be all right?
Yes, that's fine. Yep, yep.
Excellent. And could we have a corporal laid out and an additional abluting water flask in the Lady Chapel, please? The corporal on the Lady Chapel altar.
Yes, yep.
And abluting water on the thing there. In addition to that, we'll have an A3 order of service, probably in a Missa Plastica like this, on the lectern for readers. And there'll be an the red Missa Plastica for me to read out of. Otherwise, all orders of service, we can't work on that. Is there anything I've forgotten about that, Jen? So the so at 10:25 we'll adopt standing positions. So that'll be congregation in the nave, choir in the choir stalls, Lawrence seated one day at the organ, and clergy and servers down underneath the tower, and we'll do a vestry prayer and then just wait before 10:25. So coming down a little bit earlier than we might ordinarily. Tom, can we also have a bowl and the asperging brush in the chancel ready for the aspergus, if that's all right, please? And the floor manager will give us the go, and the procession will start to move within verse 1 of the hymn. So we'll give it a couple of lines and then move off. So that's all before the intro again, folks.
Father, one small thing. Can we just check on the bell? Because the bell's going to be the first thing to be broadcast, I assume.
Alison and Robin, can you take care of the ringing of the sacristy bell? Make sure Robin's there to ding it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, first thing on TV.
Yeah. Good. So during the introit hymn, we'll process in. Alison and Robin, you can drop the bishop off at the chancel step. I'll go up to the high altar and cense it with the servers. And God willing, we'll be finishing just during the doxology of that hymn. So during Praise to Thy Eternal Merit, we'll come back to the chair ready for the greeting. We'll brief Pradeep to come to the lectern at the same time. You can sort of stand away from it slightly while we introduce the service and do all of that, so that when we get to the end of that paragraph at the top of page 6, he is ready to go reading from the Acts of the Apostles. So there's going to be no sort of tapper as he walks up the nave. As soon as he has finished reading that, he can step away and will lead the penitential rite. So I have someone to hold the bowl, if that's all right, John, because we'll be in a slightly different position, just in front of me, and perhaps someone to hold the book as well. And we'll go down the nave, the centre aisle, round and back up again with the water, while the Vidi Aquam is being sung. We've done that the last few weeks, and in terms of timing, we've got round pretty well and been back in time to spare. We stay in place for the Gloria and for the Collect, and then we will be seated. Alison, Robin, I've got one of my yellow marks is still over the first reading. We talked about asking Amos to do that. We're going to need to. I don't know how old Amos is, but if he's under 18, we need to get him to do a special thing. And we also need to.
He's 16.
He's 16. Okay. We also need to ask him. Make sure he's at the rehearsal. Could I leave that to you guys to do this Sunday, or otherwise seek a replacement? So okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I'll pass on aid. So yeah. Good. So whoever is going to read the letter to the Romans while everyone else is sitting, and then after the first reading, the choir's going to sing a psalm. So Tom, if you come to me for incense during the gradual hymn, sort of at the point that you usually would, as it were, but not during the psalm, if that's okay. I assume that's fine. Thank you. Good. Until the thumb goes up on that thumbs up thing, it just looks like a clenched fist. Just saying. I'll do my usual routine. So after charging the thurible, I'll go up to the high altar, pick up the book of the Gospels, and then we will all troop down into the nave for the reading of the Gospel. We will come back up, and I'll leave the book with whoever is holding it for me. Do you have any thoughts on who does what, Tom?
You're on mute, Tom, if you're speaking.
I'll come back to you.
Sorry, what was the question, Barbara?
Do you have any thoughts on who will do lights and cross and things like that? I mean,
yes, I've got something in mind, so I'm going to send it out to the servers in the WhatsApp group and to Dr. Farmer.
Okay. I'll see that obviously, so I'll just jot that on my notes.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. They haven't decided yet where they want Bishop Debbie to preach from. So it's either going to be up in the pulpit or it's going to be downstairs. There seems to be quite a difference of opinion internally in the BBC as to whether pulpits or not, including from their commissioning editor. So that's obviously interesting. But we'll get Bishop Debbie either into position ready in the pulpit at the end of the Gospel or whatever else. But there'll be a bit of organ involved to cover that, I think. After the sermon, we'll go into the affirmation of faith, which is slightly simpler than we usually do, but I'll lead that, and that will be responsorial. Then some of the choristers are going to lead the intercessions. We need to work out who's going to do this.
Yeah.
Based on who's sitting where. We don't need to get additional permissions, but yeah, I think 3 from each side, just closest as. So yeah. So they'll come down to the lectern, and they'll, after I've introduced the prayers of the faithful, they will just read a paragraph each from page 12, and just sort of be sideways. We'll practice that with them on Saturday when we get into all of that. We'll stand for the peace, and here's the end of what we're doing at the chancel step. So at the end of the piece, they'll get a couple of shots of people hugging or embracing or scowling at each other or whatever people do at the piece. And then the choir will launch into Mozart's Veni Sancte Spiritus. That's 5 minutes 30? Is that right?
4 minutes.
4 minutes 30.
I reckon.
Okay. So we've got 4 minutes 30 in which to get the whole of the offertory done. Those who are bringing the oblations forward basically need to sort of not do the sharing of signs of peace. After and with thy spirit, they need to kind of go to their positions, pick up the ciborium and the 2, the wine and the water cruet, and be ready once Veni Sancte Spiritus has started to start a sort of a stately walk up the nave. sometimes we can be sort of waiting a little while for all that to happen, but nothing can really happen in the sanctuary until that's happened. So that's quite important to sort of get right. So if Alison and Robin, if you could be responsible for waving them off or prodding them with something electric if they don't move, or that would be really great.
They'll be at the back with us. So it's the 3 dep wardens.
Yeah.
So
if you could ask the person, so sometimes all the things you've always wanted to do to our worship come out when we've done this. If the person carrying the ciborium could go a pace in front of the other 2, that would be really helpful. And they can come straight forwards, because then I'll take the ciborium and move away, and then we can deal with wine and water on the other side.
Yeah, that'll be John.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, wonderful. No collection at that point. If you bring me money to bless, I will scowl at you and wave it off. While also being very grateful for people's generosity. But can we, once the broadcast has ended, if we could leave a plate out at the back, that'd be quite nice.
Yeah.
Good. So ciborium, wine and water will come up, and we will fairly rapidly charge the chalices and get ready for that. We will sense quickly. I think I'll try and listen in on the choir rehearsal and get a sense of the Veni Sancte Spiritus. And if I feel that we're running out of anthem, what I'll do, Tom, is I'll just abandon ship in terms of sensing, and hand the funeral back to you if I think that we're gonna get into problems. We don't want to have to improv over that point.
No, I would say the normal timing is 4 minutes 30 from the giving of the piece.
Sure.
So if we leave a bit of silence, I can't imagine we'd be. Yeah.
What I don't want is the kind of silence punctuated by chinking.
Yeah.
Because that's not quite silence. That's an awkward silence.
Yeah.
But yeah. Are you happy with that, Tom? So I mean you're going to be next to me anyway. So if we get to the point where we're out of music, well, start fist again. Good. There's no orate fratres in this service. We'll go straight from the anthem into the Eucharistic prayer. So the next part will be me turning round, singing the Sursum Corda, God willing, getting the notes right. Who knows? There's a sung Eucharistic preface. The choir will sing the Sanctus and Benedictus. That's very short. That's 58 seconds, we reckon.
55.
55 seconds. I'm sorry. You came 3 seconds before I was expecting it. And then we'll go into the prayer of consecration. Tom, who are you going to put in charge of ringing bells at that point?
That's going to be Amric.
Okay. I think what we'll do, I know that we usually do. We do usually do sort of. Sorry, carry on.
Because we obviously we need to discuss about not Dr. Farmer Matthew, Matthew. The other Matthew.
Yeah. Let's see if he arrives on Sunday and just establish whether he's coming and everything else like that. But I can always talk. I have got time next week to talk to his care manager. So we'll come back to Matthew at the end here. I think that there's a variety of issues knocking around there. Good. I think we'll just run through bells with Amric, because often we do ding, ding, genuflect, ding, and that works quite nicely because it's attached to the action. Or we can do, or we can ring 3 times equally, and just do that. But I think just having a clear plan of what we're gonna do, because different people do different things. The rest of sorry. Okay, so the rest of the Eucharistic prayer I think is relatively straightforward. But those of you who are at the back, join in with the memorial acclamation with great gusto. Everyone get the idea. On to page 16, and we're into the communion rite. and that will begin with the Our Father, the fraction, and then the invitation to communion. This is where things are going to be very, very different. Communion is going to be administered at the chancel step, and so we will sort of come through as normal to do that, and then the choir will start singing behind us. They're going to suggest to us that we administer communion to a limited part of the congregation, probably about sort of 50 people or so, to cover the time that we have allotted. And you can see what time that is from the running order, but it's going to fit with the singing of the Agnus Dei. Once we've sort of done our 50 or however many it turns out to be, we'll get a prod from the floor manager at that point once we're out of time. We will then stop. Ideally, we'll do that in a way that means we don't have to send people back to their seats, as they did at Canterbury. And then those who are administering, and that's going to be me, the bishop, and if I could have 2 servers to administer a chalice each, please. We'll then move over into the Lady Chapel and place all of the vessels on the corpora on the Lady Chapel altar, cover them, and they'll remain there until later on. This will be sort of explained in the congregational rehearsals, which is why this is so important, that we get as many as we can into those rehearsals on Sunday morning beforehand. Once we've done that, we'll come back to the altar, which by this stage will have nothing on it but the Missa Plastica, and do the post-communion prayer, or then move to just adjacent to the Paschal candle for the blessing and the dismissal, because the extinguishing of the candle is part of this. We'll do the blessing with the usual shouty amens, by all means, that would be rather nice. And if one of the servers could bring the candle snuffer with you, so that after the blessing, but before the dismissal, we can turn to the candle, give the dismissal, extinguish the candle, and then go up to the high altar, reverence it, and come out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. After the dismissal, the band will strike up with "Come Down, O Love Divine," and we will the clergy, servers, bishop, and church wardens. That procession will leave after verse 3. That's right, wasn't it? It was verse 3, wasn't it? Was it in the middle of verse 3? No, it was. We will depart in the middle of verse 3. My apologies. So that they can catch a bit of the procession going out as we leave. The hymn will end one way or the other. We may get signs held up by the floor manager, which means we have to cut verses at the last minute if we're running late, or it might be that Lawrence has to do an extra long improv if we're running early. But the procession will go out during verse 3. The organ voluntary will start up and will continue until the end of the broadcast. And what we're waiting for is the floor manager to tell us that we're clear of broadcast and that we're switched off, because as long as we need it, we'll carry on needing organ voluntary to cover the end of the broadcast, cover the credits and everything else like that, and the kind of the next on BBC One kind of nonsense. Once we're clear of the broadcast, clergy and servers will come back in and we'll move straight up to the chapel, and we will resume the administration of Holy Communion. So we'll go to the chapel, gather the vessels, and resume the place that we were in at the head of the chancel step. At which point we'll invite all who wish to come forward and make their communion. The crew at this point will sort of clear out and just stay out of our way. And we'll administer communion to as many as wish. So at that point, if we start off with the choir coming out and round, as they usually do, following the clergy out of the Lady Chapel, We'll send the choir back to the stalls where they'll stay seated. Congregation comes through and everything else like that. Those who haven't already made their communion or received a blessing or whatever else like that. When the distribution is complete, we will carry the vessels back to the high altar, and I'll lead the congregation in saying the two prayers. The prayer on page 20, Almighty God, we thank thee for feeding us. And then we'll give one or two notices about leaving, and perhaps anything that we really feel that we want to say. We might say some thank yous at that point to all who've been part of that. We will then share the grace and dismiss the congregation, and then we will oblute. So when we bring the vessels back at the end of the second administration, we will say the prayer, do the notices, do the grace with them still there, and then clergy and servers will remain up there just to clear that up and to do the ablutions. Okay. And then that's it. We clear out, they de-rig, and it'll be time for coffee, I think. So that's a whistle-stop tour of the production. I'm just going to show you finally, as I'm hoping that you will have gathered up any questions that you have. This is going to run. I'm just going to show you finally the running order. But please take a look at that yourself when you're able to, just to get a handle on what is happening and when, and excuse me, there we go, and it'll give you some sense about how this all fits together and how we're going to do what we usually do in an hour and a quarter, an hour and 20 minutes in a shorter space of time. So there we go. Grand. Questions. Is there anything that you would like to ask me or Jem or the wardens? Most of us have been in the planning meetings here and there.
I suppose the question I have is just for on the Saturday in particular, but also on the Sunday, at what time do you want all of the guys there to start doing stuff? What?
So just looking at the schedule, Matt. So they are on Saturday. Choir's going to be in from they're coming at 3.
Yeah, it's scheduled for 3:30 if I remember correctly, but I've asked them into.
Okay, so if you could possibly arrive half an hour before the rehearsal, or thereabouts, that'd be great, and we can just gather ourselves and make sure we're ready in position. I think the dress rehearsal especially so, just because we're going to want to have everyone queued up for that.
Can I just ask a question, Father? Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. From the point of view of when you're doing communicating in the limited time, it would be better if we communicated less and left a gap rather than people straggling all over the middle of the aisle. Is that okay?
I think so. I think you pick a block of rows or check this.
Yeah.
The floor manager. And run with that, and that will be our administration. So there's a definite point where you're going to stop inviting people up.
Yeah.
There's a definite point where the clergy are going to step away and go off to the Lady Chapel. Jem.
We do have Schubert and G a dry run this Sunday morning. So
okay.
If you wanted to get an idea of how many people you can get through over the course of that, you could.
Yeah, we think it's about 50. Robin had a count up last week, and we think it's about 50 in 5 minutes.
I think bear in mind that often over the last few weeks I've been administering the precious body on my own, and that's not the case of Pentecost.
Yeah.
So I think whatever you have,
it might be quicker.
I think we choose an intelligent number. I think 50 is a decent number, to be honest.
Yeah.
Crack on with that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
We talked a little bit about Matthew earlier. I think a lot of the concerns I heard about Matthew were about sort of behavior and situational awareness. We could simply sort of say to his carers, you know, we don't, and to him, in fact, that we don't want him to serve that Sunday, just because it's a bit complicated and everything else like that. That might be the simplest way to take it out. My feeling, my starting point was rather that I would want him to be part of it because he's part of us, and that if there was something that we could have him do, that would make some sense and that would be straightforward to rehearse and to realize in a predictable way. Now, for the most part, predictable stuff he's best on because he knows what he's doing. It's when things change that he gets disorientated. Conscious that if we give him something new to do that he hasn't done before,
we can't do that.
Equally, he may just be totally disorientated with the layout of the building with all this stuff in it.
Yeah.
So I'm open to any thoughts or suggestions.
Well, I mean, he's been with us some time now, so I think it would be good if he could be. But not to give him anything new to do because I think that would just throw him.
I had in mind that he'd do candle.
Yeah.
Okay. Which he's used to doing, but from this Sunday we drill it to him, you know, position wise, you know, and everything, not talking to the choristers.
Yeah.
My only concern is he likes to try and sing at times, and I'm just about the microphones picking that up.
I think probably we want to take the service into the Lady Chapel anyway, because we're not going to have.
I was thinking serving from Lady Chapel wise.
So we're not going to have space in the stalls.
No. So I think we'll do serving from Lady Chapel.
Yeah.
And then they'll pop out as and when needed.
Yeah, and that's also a decent place for him to sort of unmask and you know, do things like, you know, scratching himself in an unpleasant place, and you know, and do that. And if he wants to, you know, there's, I think we talked about ambient noise quite a bit. There's going to be ambient noise because we're a church on a roundabout, aren't we? I think they will factor that in. Quite a lot of it's going to be sort of close miking in the chancel, and a little bit more general in the nave. But I'm not too concerned. I can't hear Matthew talking to Lawrence. That was a revelation to me that he does that. So
do you know what he? It's worth bearing in mind when he's very inquisitive and he often talks to people on CAN. In fact, he never used to. Now it's every single Sunday.
Yeah.
And bear in mind for the broadcast on CAN, that's all kiddie winks.
Yeah.
So
he can't go on there.
So he can't go on CAN. Definitely not.
Well, with the serving from the Lady Chapel, he won't be around in the chancel.
Yeah. That makes sense. Well, that sounds like we've got a plan.
Yeah.
Are we content with that? And that's a way of we're going to need to just make sure with his carers that he is going to be there, but he will on time. He's always early, so sometimes uncomfortably so. So I don't think that's a problem. But yeah, okay, that sounds like
we've one thing with his learning difficulties and his sort of mental age. Does he? Do they have to sign anything for him?
That's a very good question. I will follow that one up. yeah, good call, Tom. Thank you for that. Oh, Kim has just emailed me.
Oh,
She can't join it.
She said,
Says invalid meeting. Please check and try again. Well, okay. I'll send Kim a recording as well.
yeah, she'll be at the rehearsal anyway, so it'll be fine.
Great.
Well, will Matthew be doing his shaking hands routine?
No servers will be given the peace.
I think we'll try and avoid that one. I think, and the other thing to say about Matthew is that there's an element of to an extent rolling with him, and sort of de-escalating stuff. That you know, there are ways of moving him on, and there are ways of sort of working with him, so yeah. But I think we can work some of that stuff through. We kept the servers in the Lady Chapel for the piece, then that would solve that one. Then he can shake hands with everyone in the chapel, and we can crack on. Right. Okie dokie then. I've been told that that after the broadcast begins, that they're not going to allow people to enter into the church, and I know that Robin asked me this morning whether we can go back and ask for movement on that. I think we need to be prepared for them to say no, and I think the message needs to be come early, folks. We're not going to expect everyone to be in their seats at 9:30. But I don't think we're being unreasonable in saying that actually we could be better at arriving at church on time, and that this is a reasonable expectation. So I've given that message, hopefully loud and clear, for those of you who listen to the notices the last couple of Sundays. I'll do it again this Sunday. Work on that. I just think, you know, in terms of having those doors open and, you know, throughput coming through, it may be that we can set aside areas at the back of the south and north aisles, and that's fine. But I think saying people, please do come on time, please be part of the rehearsals and the briefing. You know, don't mill around going, oh, what's going on about that, when you haven't sort of turned up.
I mean,
two things, Father. One is that if we are having the doors open at the back, then people turning up late, we'll need to manage that really quite carefully. Secondly, if we get the leaving party, i.e. the church wardens and the duty people at the back, to remind everyone punctually at 9:30, because what worries me is there'll be sound up and a half-empty church, judging by some of our Sunday morning performances.
And I mean, and that's a risk, and that's obviously something we want to avoid as well. You know, I don't know what to do about it. When we were talking with them, they were sort of fairly categorical about no entry after 10:30. So
yeah, I mean, it would be better to leave, if we could, a space at the back of one of the aisles, because you know, we're probably going to get a few latecomers, and it, you know, we don't want it to escalate into, you know, an argy-bargy. It could be quite unpleasant, you know, so I think we'll have to have those doors manned anyway.
You need to man anyway because of the fire breaks. So because you're going to be
I was going to ask Graham Trotter and perhaps Trevor Elms if they're available, that we could just station them outside in the narthex, you know. I think that might be useful.
To say as well, those doors are quite loud when you open and close them. So which is also not great. But yeah.
If we do have people late and for whatever reason the BBC let us do it, should we perhaps keep the north aisle for that? Because that would be the least disruptive to the camera views, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's plan for that and see how that goes.
Yeah, because
the production team have been in touch with the cafe. I don't know what they've sort of said to them about noise operations, but I would imagine they'll be looking for a diminishing of noise in there as well. So
yeah. I mean, I don't suppose the doors can be closed, can they? Because of the wires and everything, the cables.
and the wires are coming. So the wires are coming through through a window in the north aisle.
Oh, are they?
So
Okay.
it's going to be sort of a scaffold on there to protect the window frame.
Yeah.
But the doors. I mean, if it's a day like this and the doors are closed and the church is full, it's going to be horrible in there.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to want some ventilation somehow or other.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think those are kinks to work out with the crew when they're rigging.
Yeah.
When we get to the rest.
Yeah. I mean, who's that talking? From cafe noise point of view, I mean, the south aisle doors are the best ones to close, and then perhaps keep the others open.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Good. I've run out of stuff to tell you all. At least for now. I have many other things to say to you, but you cannot bear it now. So I'll leave it there. There may be other questions that come up, but if we have a little check-in over coffee on Sunday morning after Mass, and we can do the same on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday next week.
Yeah.
But I hope that's helpful. I hope that's answered some of your questions about how we're going to realize some of these things. It sounds like we've got a plan for Matthew and things like that. So that's some of my unanswered, and we'll crack on through. Alison, Robin, can you let me know about Amos? I should have spoken to Amrit this evening actually, and we'll get cracking with the rest of those to-do points. I will, once this is finished recording, I'll upload this video. I'll do an unlisted YouTube video, so you can go back and listen again, or for those who can't be here today. All right.
Okay, yeah. I'll sort the brass out with Robin Mini and cobwebs in the south file and the windowsills. So yeah, I'll get that sorted. That
would be great. Thank you very much indeed. And just to say thank you for all engaging positively with this. It would have been a shame to say no, but I'm glad we didn't. I'm hopeful that for all of the effort that this has involved, that this is going to put both the church and the town and things in a very good light. So, yeah. Yep. On that note, I'll